I've always thought that last words were very interesting, because theoretically you have your entire life to think of them. But of course, some last words are more intentional than others. They're especially intentional for people on death row, such as the murderer Jeffrey Landrigan, who chose to make his last words "Boomer Sooner," which is the fight song of the University of Oklahoma, and you just know he was looking up with a smile when they joined the SEC. Anyway, arguably the best kind of last words are the ones that are completely ironic, such as the classic quote, "What are you gonna do, stab me?" by a man stabbed. So in that spirit, let's run through some of the most ironic last words by people of history. First of all, we have Harold Holt, the 17th Prime Minister of Australia. By December of 1967, he had been leading the country for 2 years. And one weekend he was taking a little vacation at his holiday home in Portsea, Victoria. At this time, the sailor Alec Rose was about to complete his solo circumnavigation of the globe. So Harold Holt and some friends decided to watch Rose's return to Melbourne from a shore nearby. On their way back to Portsea, Holt convinced everyone to stop at a beach and go for a cheeky midday swim, which was an odd choice because the conditions on that day were terrible, but Holt loved swimming, so he reassured his worried friends and dove into the water. He swam out a bit before seemingly being caught in a rip current. He then disappeared from view and was never seen again. According to those who were with him, his last words were, "I know this beach like the back of my hand." And I guess that's a reminder that even the back of your hand can hurt you if you punch yourself hard enough. And just to add an extra level of irony to this story, on the morning of his disappearance, Harold Holt had gone to a general store to buy a couple things, including the day's newspaper. And what was one of the headlines in The Australian that day? PM advised to swim less. Probably should have taken that advice. But in his defense, it's kind of like reading a horoscope and just rolling your eyes. Except the horoscope was written only for you and is asking you to avoid doing literally one thing. I guess you can't deny that he played by his own rules. Next up, we have General John Sedgwick, who served in the Union Army during the American Civil War. I know I've been talking about the Civil War a lot lately, but it fits the video. General Sedgwick was a pretty tough guy. When his unit was surrounded at the Battle of Antietam, Sedgwick was shot 3 times. He took time off to recover, but returned to the war only 3 months later. But the brave general met his demise in May of 1864 at the Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse, which is one of the cooler battle names you'll ever hear. Spotsylvania Courthouse is actually the full name of the town, which is a bit like naming a car Mercedes steering wheel. On the first day of the battle, Sedgwick was overseeing artillery placements when Confederate sharpshooters began firing at his group from about 1,000 yards away. Sedgwick's men began ducking for cover, which the grizzled general found absolutely appalling. He started chastising his men, saying, "Men dodging this way for single bullets? What will you do when they open fire along the whole line?" And you just know his men felt like complete pussies in that moment. But still, they stayed behind cover, prompting General Sedgwick to say, "Why are you dodging like this? They couldn't hit an elephant at this distance." Sure enough, a bullet immediately struck him in the head and killed him, which must have been extremely vindicating for everyone he was yelling at. And while we may never know if they could have hit an elephant, there's no doubt that they could hit John Sedgwick. Up next is Donald O'Connor, the actor, dancer, and singer who's probably best remembered for starring alongside Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds in Singin' in the Rain. Unless there are any Francis the Talking Mule fans out there, who probably remember him more as Francis's human comrade. And before you laugh, just know that that mule was a patriot who gave his life serving our country in the South Pacific. Anyway, O'Connor lived a pretty long life, at least compared to the last 2 guys, and he died in 2003 at the age of 78, which means he's the first one on this list who could actually choose his own last words. And what did he choose to say? Quote, "I'd just like to thank the Academy for my Lifetime Achievement Award that I will eventually get." Now, as much as that might sound like he's a cocky asshole, O'Connor loved to joke around and probably said it in a more humorous tone than how it reads on paper. But perhaps the Academy interpreted his quote the other way, because it's been almost 25 years since his death and that Lifetime Achievement Award is nowhere to be found. Which is particularly offensive because Gene Kelly already has a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Academy, Debbie Reynolds has a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Screen Actors Guild, and Francis the Talking Mule has a Purple Heart. O'Connor does have a Golden Globe, an Emmy, and 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but it seems the Academy has been ghosting him to shame his arrogance. But if Donald O'Connor ever does get that Lifetime Achievement Award, his preemptive thanks will go from being incredibly ironic to being the coldest, most baller last words of all time. It just goes to show that if you want to escape the shadow of your former equine co-star, you have to gamble all your aura on a decades-long waiting game with the Academy. That's an old Hollywood trick from the Golden Age. To be honest, this next one is only kind of ironic, but it's so incredibly bizarre that I had to talk about it. And these last words belong to another old Hollywood legend, Kirk Douglas. Now, Douglas was born in December of 1916 and didn't pass away until February of 2020. That's right, he was 103 at the time of his death. And there is something absolutely incredible about living through the entirety of American prosperity, experiencing the highest levels of fame, and then dying a month before a global pandemic. So after he lived a life like that, you're probably on the edge of your seat wondering what this legendary centenarian would have to say on his way out the door. Well, according to his son Michael Douglas, the last words of Kirk Douglas were, quote, "Mike can get it done," referring not to his son, but to the presidential campaign of former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Yes, this 103-year-old Hollywood legend used his last moments to endorse a presidential candidate who dropped out less than a month later. These words were revealed at a rally for Bloomberg, in which Michael Douglas added, "I don't know if he was pulling my leg or not." And you know the statement was ridiculous if Michael Douglas felt inclined to clarify that it might have been a joke while he was at a rally for the guy his dad endorsed. And if it was a joke, to be fair, it is absolutely hilarious. But if it wasn't a joke, it is the most baffling thing he could have said in that moment. It's not even like people thought Bloomberg was gonna win back then. He was polling terribly the whole time, and in the primaries he only won American Samoa, where he received a total of 175 votes. That's not a joke. American Samoa only had 351 people show up to vote. But hey, maybe Kirk Douglas thought that his deathbed endorsement would be the spark that launches Bloomberg into the White House. Or maybe by "Mike can get it done," he meant Mike can win a small American territory after spending over $1 billion on a 4-month campaign. Finally, we have the last words of America's second president, John Adams. And one thing you might not know about John Adams is that for a period of his life, he had a weird beef with his successor, Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson had defeated Adams in the election of 1800, and after they both ran bitter campaigns against each other, the former buddies had developed a legitimate feud. And this is before presidents just pretended to be enemies. These guys actually hated each other. On the morning of Jefferson's inauguration, Adams left the White House before sunrise instead of attending the ceremony. Jefferson then ignored the half-hearted letter of congratulations that Adams had given him, and the two didn't speak at all for the next 12 years. It took the interference of their mutual friend, the fellow founding father Dr. Benjamin Rush, to end the feud. He told Adams that he had a dream in which the two presidents reconciled, which was apparently enough for Adams to send a letter to Jefferson. And the two of them quickly rekindled their friendship and spent the rest of their lives exchanging letters. After 14 years of being pen pals with Jefferson, Adams had a heart attack on July 4th, 1826, which was the 50th anniversary of the country being founded. As he died, he uttered his last words, "Thomas Jefferson survives." After a lifetime of friendship, rivalry, and correspondence, John Adams spent his last moments celebrating the continued survival of another American icon. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to John Adams, Thomas Jefferson had died 6 hours prior, and the word hadn't reached him yet. And even if it had, I don't think anyone around him would have chosen to break the news at that moment. Yep, he's still alive. You're all good. Don't even worry about it. Either way, there's something very poetic about two of the nation's key founding fathers dying on the 50th anniversary of the day they signed the Declaration of Independence. Someone should have shot James Madison to really tie the whole thing together. So those are some of the most ironic last words of all time. Honestly, there are enough fitting quotes that I could probably do a part 2, so let me know if you guys enjoyed this. And if you can't bother to let me know, don't worry, Mike will get it done. Now please consider subscribing, or I'll make you serve in World War II alongside a talking mule. And for my last words of this video, allow me to say that I am absolutely certain that this will get 1 million views.